Hi, everybody. I feel like I need to complete my nursery rhyme from about 15 minutes ago.
It's good to know that you remember it.
It's good to know that I didn't choose something dirtier than a Mother Goose nursery rhyme for my mic check. Anyway. Hi, so nice to see so many people still here. I am really, really excited about this session. As the producer of this event, who really kind of thought a lot about how we wanted to program this day for as many diverse points of view as possible, this was kind of one of those sessions where we saw a really unique opportunity to not just populate the session with people who come from like places or like businesses, but really kind of put both platforms as well as individual brands and creatives together so that we could talk about kind of what's happening in the ecosystem as a whole. So welcome, guys. Really, really pleased to be here with you. And we're going to just kind of jump right into it. I think there's a lot to talk about and not a ton of time to talk about it. And I'd love to just kind of maybe get right to the punch, which is irrespective of whether you are a platform or an individual brand or creative, it is essential in order to be successful that you grow your audiences, right? Audience growth, not exclusive no matter who you are. Can you talk a little bit about, from your point of view, what some of the most critical business activities related to audience growth look like for you? Shira.
In terms of, we've been thinking about audience growth from the beginning. We were actually a live show back in 2011, as you saw in that video, but the live space wasn't ready. We weren't necessarily consuming on social and mobile. There's a lot of, someone's moving a chair there a lot. Anyway, and we were, a live stream, Ustream at the time, YouTube. And so we then went short form. We actually totally shut down some of our consistent live programming. The past year, it's been really fun to see a resurrection of live. A lot of people are saying live is now, it's now a thing. And I'm like, it was a thing a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Now the audience and the platforms are finally ready for live. And so for me as a business, that's really interesting because it's an expertise we've always had. We're passionate about it. And we tend to really look at how do we bring out the best in our business partners and brands and creators that we work with in the live space. And in terms of building a business, the two things you think about when building a business is audience and then revenue. What are the monetization around it? And that's a big question I think everyone has when we talk about these things. It's either you're
an example of, staying on sort of audience growth for a second, what would you say is something that you guys kind of keeps you up at night, meaning if I don't do this, then we will not have successfully moved the needle? What would be an example of that?
Yeah, for me, it's it is a bit of a race right now. For us, we're seeing when we go live, we're seeing a connection to our not just overall viewership, but followers on certain platforms. Mm-hmm. So what keeps me up at night is we didn't, because we're also building it as it's happening, specifically, on this new app, Lively, and as it relates to Facebook Live, you either need to invest a lot of your own resources or you're doing built if sold. I think that is a great model, built if sold. However, you're going to be waiting to get ahead. Yeah. I think eNews is even smart because they decided to put in the money into it and they're just going to build it and then sell into it. They're going to prove the models and case studies, and that's the angle I take as a creator and a media brand. I think it's great to get a brand on board from the beginning, but if you're, it's better to do it than to wait 3 to 6 months because you don't know where the landscape is going to be at that point.
So it's really about trying a whole bunch of things, not being afraid to,
try
new things and potentially them not work and because time is of the essence.
Yeah, and then create workflows and strategies and figure out your voice and what relates to your brand and your culture and how it relates to your audiences on other platforms and all that. But we could talk about that.
Aligning audience with the content they love, right?
Yes.
Makes sense. Brian.
Yeah, so for, I work with, I've launched 30 Fortune 500 brands on Periscope and Facebook Live, and I like to say I'm a B2B tech guy, so the unsexy brands, the brands that you wouldn't expect on live is who I kind of work with. And so I kind of developed, what we do is we educate the audience where they're at. And a lot of these brands, email newsletter is actually our #1 source for growing our audience on a live video platform. But it's not about telling them what to do, because if you tell your audience, hey, come follow me, come download a new app, it's like my 6-year-old, they say no, immediately. I don't need another app, I don't need another anything. So we do a kind of a drip campaign through email where we give people a taste and a teaser, and we focus on why they should care about the content. So if it's an executive brand like an IBM or a Samsung, we say, hey, every Friday that we have a live stream going, you have access to a CEO. You can get this, you can ask questions, your voice can get heard. And then we slowly drip out like what times it is, a little bit, like a 30-second clip. I like to give people a little tease, and then we bring them to us. And so I think today, I did the other way around, as I told everybody, to come around. And I kind of have a luxury because I was an influencer as a live streamer myself, but I also, and for a lot of brands, even if Periscope is owned by Twitter, they say, hey, I have 200,000 followers on Twitter. I can't get over 2,000 followers on Periscope. And I like to say, well, how many retweets did you get? How many favorites did you get? And they're like 3 or 4. And I'm like, well, why did you think all these people would all of a sudden jump over to Periscope? But if you have an audience on an email newsletter, or if you have, you want to do things out, I think the weird thing in live video is that consistency probably matters more than you've ever imagined, because just because it's live doesn't mean you don't need a strategy, doesn't mean you don't need to educate your audience. And for me, the brands that we've really been able to do it is, we'll go live 5 times every Monday for 5 weeks in a row. And right about that 4th week, all of a sudden we're seeing repeat viewership, we're seeing our audience growth, we're seeing people share, because they're not going to share because you tell them to share, they're going to share because that why resonates with them and their community. So for me, I focus on a strategy that brings our content and answers the why wherever they're at.
So the programming strategy and really sort of setting the tone for what people can expect, so it's easy for them to know when to come back for the things that they want. That's great. So as we kind of move over to the platform answer to this question, in my mind it's somewhat twofold, right? Because as platforms you are looking to grow audience, certainly for both Busker and YouNow. For the individual influencers who come to your platform, they themselves are invested in how they can grow their individual audiences, which can only be made possible by their own efforts, but also certainly the features and functionality and things that you bake into it to kind of make that so. So maybe you can answer the question sort of in 2 parts, how you think about audience growth from a platform perspective and then on behalf of your influencers. Tamir.
From a platform perspective, it's all about creativity and authenticity. At the end of the day, if you aren't going to create authentic experiences, people aren't going to engage and find you believable. So in the long run, that really pays off, I think. Consistency as it relates to coming back as frequently as possible and setting scheduled times that you're going to be there. On Busker, we have a scheduled broadcast feature where people are actually creating shows around specific times throughout the week. So it gives them an opportunity to go out there and promote their show well in advance, let folks know across other social mediums that they're going to be live on Busker talking about some specific subject matter, and that goes a long way as well. But I think going back to it, it's just about authentic experiences and leveraging what the app has to offer. In our case, we've layered in monetization, which is a big kind of differentiator for us in terms of commerce, where we're now allowing broadcasters to sell product directly through a live stream, and it's native to the experience. So that's one of a kind in terms of the app world today, and we're very excited about pushing that out about a month ago. And we're seeing a lot of creators leverage that in unique ways, right? An example is we have a motivational freestyle rapper who wears a hat pretty much every day.
Motivational freestyle
rapper. He wears a different hat every day that he broadcasts, and he thought it'd be a great idea. Why don't I sell the hat? So he's literally selling the hat off of his head to his fans, to people who are now engaging at that level. That's pretty amazing. He signs it, drops it in the mail, and now I have a piece of fame, right? Which is pretty amazing.
So for influencers who are attracted to the idea of commerce as a key part of what they do or how they generate revenue, you guys have found ways to try to enable that. As
we have, and we're listening to the community. We're trying to get an understanding of what it is that they want to help, again, drive a deeper form of engagement and of course, monetize. At the end of the day, live streaming is amazing, social interactions are amazing, but there's a means to an end for some of these people. They want to make a living, and if we can help drive that, we will, and we are.
Great. Adi?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Adi with YouNow. I think that Tamir said it right, where for the creators, it's really important to be rewarded for their efforts. Creating video is very different than creating an Instagram photo or making a short tweet. It really requires a lot of time and attention. Shira does amazing work. Brian is putting together shows every day. And it's our responsibility as a platform to ensure that they are rewarded. So 2 things. One, have a built-in revenue model where right at the end of the broadcast they can see how much they've earned. That's really important. And 2, give creators tools for them to be able to create the best possible content. So just recently we released a desktop app that allows people to bring up their Instagram or bring up their Snapchat as they're broadcasting. That's something that people want to do. It's really hard to be there broadcasting all by yourself, for an hour and a half. Why don't I bring up some media?
So it's
to
for the
help?
feedback loop that
Right.
that it's attractive. For
And,
them.
and from a creator perspective, we want to work with brands and platforms that give a crap about the creator, right? And I think what you're saying there is because you guys do listen. There's lots of them out there that don't. I think that is a huge reason for advocacy.
Yeah, and just as quickly, like we need to act quick as a creator, or I would say as a publisher. The platforms need to act quickly because the creators will find things as they're using the platform, and if the app or platform doesn't act on that, it will get frustrating as a creator that you're doing it on your own. If you see mechanisms like, yeah, we bring that up manually. Right now, we tell people to call us on Snapchat. We started using that. It's like a radio call-in almost, I say. Or we'll tell people to follow us on Instagram. If there are ways to integrate that more seamlessly, it makes it easier for us as we're going live for hours. Monetization is key. Yeah, I think that at first it's fun and we're all getting a lot of followers really quickly, which is awesome because audience is key. And then at a certain point you go, what am I putting this time into if I can't sell against it? For me, I'm coming to it from a bit of a different perspective because I'm a creator as an individual. I'm also an executive and a CEO of a company. We're also selling to brands. We're selling to traditional publishers. So I'm thinking about it from a holistic perspective of how do I help my fellow creator do more with what they're good at and stay authentic and stay real. I'm not coming to it from like a corporate monger perspective. At the same time, I realize we all want to make money. It's a creative capitalism almost.
Well, and this is what's really interesting is that these communities sort of thrive off of one another.
Yeah.
Meaning the influencers themselves. So they'll leverage a feature or come up with an idea, right, that maybe no one else has done, and people catch on very quickly. And that goes a long way, both for the apps and the communities and for the influencers themselves. And, of course, for the viewers, too, right? Because the viewers, in the long run, benefit.
I think that's probably a big mistake brands make as well as creators is that they start with a platform. And I think first you have to define what success looks like, understand the audience you want to reach. And I made that mistake. I pitched a lot of brands, hey, I want to help you. And I said, I want to do a Periscope, I want to do a Facebook Live, I want to do a Busker, a YouNow. And they said, that's not where we're at. And I said, okay, what's success look like? We want to reach millennials that are decision makers, that have children. Okay, now let's backwards into what app, what platform is the best to do that. Then let's invest our time in that. And I think that's one of the things that's really neat because you can be a creator and your goal is to educate the public and you go live on Periscope. Kyle Kittleson is one of the guys that comes from mine. He does pet training. But then every week he also has a scheduled Busker where he also does pet tips and you can tip him on that app. And so his strategy on each platform is unique because of the success metrics he kind of started it off with.
I'd love to spend a few minutes on that because I know we've got a lot of folks here from either the brand and or agency space. And I'd love to hear from you guys in kind of a perfect world, what does the engagement flow with a brand actually look like? Meaning from the moment you kind of sit down together to conceptualize all the way through to execution, what would you like to see happen and or look differently than it does today? Adi, I know you've been very vocal about this, about kind of brands really needing to sort of maybe relax the desire to control everything about the execution, but what does that look like in your minds? How would you like to see that perfect day?
Sure. One thing is for sure, it's not going to be pre-rolls and post-rolls. That is not authentic, using the most important word here, and that's not going to be embraced by the community of creators, and it's not going to be effective for the viewers or the brand. And so, in our case, what we have put together is a suite of integrated goods. Our platform is a freemium platform. It allows anybody to interact, to chat, to vote, to gift for free. But if you want to have a deeper experience with the broadcast, you can purchase micropayments and buy a bigger gift, or buy a message that appears on the screen, or buy confetti, or buy, and then a brand can also empower the community and provide some of that currency and provide some of those very powerful gifts that affect the gameplay, that impact what's going on the screen in real time. It's really participation media. It's really an interactive television application that we're looking at. By giving those gifts to the audience is happy because they're getting something very valuable that otherwise they would have to pay for. The creator is happy because they are getting the virtual currency that show up as real money at the end of their broadcast. And the brand is benefiting from having an authentic moment there where everybody on the platform is gaining. Yeah. And so that's our approach to it, and we're really excited to be rolling it out.
Do you guys agree that that there being, I think, a modicum of flexibility and/or release of control is essential to putting something together for a brand that achieves ultimately what is their goal at the end of the day, which is exposure to the right audience who's most likely to buy their product or service?
You want to leave it up to the creators to a big extent, right? I mean, work within the confines of sort of the creator's environment, right? I mean, I think we've seen how some Viners took advantage of that with the HP campaign, and that it was a beautiful thing because it was sort of the brand saying, okay, do what you do, we love what you do, and we think you can help us get sort of the word across.
And I think, and on that same point, so my pitch deck has the first 2 slides. It says, if you believe perfection is what you seek and control is something that you believe in, thank you for your time. I no longer need to talk to you. And it sounds harsh, but if you believe perfection is the ultimate goal, then you're looking at the wrong medium. And I think that's that point. Not only should you integrate it, because I don't think any one brand, any one product, any one experience, the creators know. No one brand is worth losing the authenticity to my community, losing that kind of connection. I think if I had to see that perfect moment, I think Gary was sitting up here earlier and he called me out about I don't believe brand execs understand, and I don't. And he said, he thinks they do. And I think the gentleman's answer that was sitting next to him when he said, hey, we understand there's live video, there's these conversations, but they don't get near the numbers of what I get on the TV. And I asked that same question. You get those same numbers with the billboard. But I can tell you with the brands that we work with, we work on direct engagement, we work on paid social afterwards with targeting, and all of ours is data driven. And I can actually tell you clicks by engagement, I can tell you amount of viewers it takes to drive actual results. And you can't get that from like the Nielsen box and that side. And so for me, when you're comparing 1 million views to 100,000 views, it's not about the million versus 100,000. It's about how many people can I get to take action for your brand. And I think that's why I look at it and say execs kind of are disconnected when it comes to the brand value.
And it's not one or the other. It's not like, oh, take away all this TV and just go all in. Yep. You're saying this is a piece of the strategy. And so if you think about it in that way, you go, okay, like that makes sense. It's not like this is the only thing you're gonna be doing. And maybe for some brands, it's gonna be the strategy for that activation or that campaign. For us, I think the key is going in to brands saying, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? What's your audience? Because so many times we'll do a project with a brand and then halfway through they'll be like, we actually really wanna get clicks to our site, or we actually want to sell product. You're like, well, wait. This is meant to be this. So I think that miscommunication happens a lot. And if together you come in with that transparency of, this is what I need and want out of it, and then this is the costs, and like we're all going to be experimenting together. There's also this feeling because we're experimenting that let's do a really cheap cost, and then the expectation is so huge. I think we need to be honest with the deal making here. We need to be fair and respectful to the hard costs and the amount of time and strategy that is being put in, which sometimes that doesn't happen, and so we need to be open to having honest conversations with that.
It's the creator's responsibility too. I mean, let's face it, the creators, don't take deals that aren't authentic to your community, that you can't even hit the numbers. I mean, the amount of creators that can't tell you demographic, target audience, amount of what they can expect. When you go in, I think my tagline is slightly inappropriate, but I think any influencer, any creator can get a one-night stand. Very few can get them a call back the next day with a brand. And I think that is because they can't tell their story, they can't prove their value. And then ultimately, some of the platforms don't allow us very much flexibility in proving that value as well, which is a data issue.
I mean, it's about instant gratification. I mean, this is what's happening today in social media. People want things now, I mean, the Uberification of everything extends to social media. I mean, and this is, at Busker, this is something that we recognize and something that we're going after. Direct response is a huge thing. So to your point, you know, if you can live stream and talk about a brand in a way that drives immediate results, well, that's as big as ever. I mean, this morning I came here a bit late from a meeting with a brand who is a brand retailer looking to promote a product in collaboration with an influencer, and it's, I mean, for us that's the holy grail, right?
Yep.
Where, you know, that influencer can leverage our platform and drive direct sales to their hundreds of thousands of users directly through a live stream. It's pretty amazing, and it's direct response, and it's instant. It's what people want.
The trifecta.
Right.
I want to sort of come back to something I feel like we started to touch on, which is that we live in, and Gary V's been known to say this, and we discuss this a lot with our clients and colleagues at Brave, but you know, we're really working inside of an attention economy, right? So it is not that social is necessarily displacing traditional media on a one-to-one, but the reality is that the kind of influx of platform and people and the ability to engage with more things than ever before does create competition just in a new way. It puts people who are not like for like up against each other for the time of the same audience, essentially. And so I would love to hear from you guys, you know, tell me, you know, in 2 sentences, who your audience is, and then what's working. You know, what was that last kind of aha moment where you were sitting in front of your like insights dashboard and you said, holy shit, I can't believe this many people watched this video or shared at this level or this thing over-indexed on whatever. So 2 sentences on who the audience is and what's working, what's in the zeitgeist for them. Adi.
Sure. So we're really excited when we see the time spent on platform.
That's 1 sentence. Kidding. Go ahead.
And then we're really excited when we see the level of participation and people wanting to jump onto the screen and participate in a 2-way. And
your audience you would classify as who?
Our audience is millennials. They spend over 30 minutes a day on the platform, and 70% of them interact, meaning they chat, they vote, they guest broadcast, they gift, etc.
Great, so participation over index for sure.
Our audience is millennials, 18 to 34. Interaction is key. We make it easy for people to interact and for creators to monetize. Ultimately, that's what's driving a ton of interaction in our area.
Are there creators who focus on specific like themes or that tend to pop on your platform? Like I don't know, Shira, you're obviously like deeply ingrained in pop culture. Is it, you know, are pets in the zeitgeist? Is it comedy? Is it horror shorts? Like,
I mean, if you scroll down to the bottom of our app, you'll see a section of top 5 categories, and that section is growing often. So growing in terms of creators and growing in terms of categories. I don't think there's boundaries to what live streaming can offer, and there's plenty of people surfacing in multiple categories. So comedians, musicians, artists, health experts. We have a WTF category, which is everything that, you know, is just random about randomness, but it's amazing content. So we're really spanning across multiple spectrums.
Lots of diverse programming. Brian?
So for me, it's actually platform-based. So Periscope, my audience is actually small, medium-sized business owners, you know, ranging 25 to 45 years old, mainly in a tech space or some kind of tech environment. My Facebook Live audience is actually a little older crowd that they can subscribe. They know they're going to get the notification. And the interesting thing is the people that come to my Snapchat, which I think is like my segue. My goal is always to get someone to watch me on stage or watch one of my live broadcasts. They're going to hire me. They're going to bring me to the strategy. And Snapchat is that intimate experience. And my Snapchat is 18-year-old to the 35, like the typical one that you hear. But it's funny because the 2 audiences, when they watch me on Periscope, the younger generation continues to engage with me on Snapchat. The older generation subscribes to my Facebook page. And for me, that's why I have a unique strategy for what I share on Facebook and what I share on Snapchat based on that demographic.
Yeah, we on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, I would say the older social platforms. Was always like an older, like millennial, but the 18 to 34. But then when we jumped on Musical.ly and Lively, it was a ton of teens, and so now we've gone a bit more Gen Z. millennial, and we're seeing that audience because they are so participatory and interactive. Whereas even Facebook Live, I would say, is a pretty, depending on what you're doing, a more of a lean back experience. Like people will share and comment, but they're not necessarily taking screenshots. They're not necessarily calling you on Snapchat. They're not necessarily, following you on Instagram and doing things, based on requests that you give them. So, we're now figuring out how we draft that audience, the Lively, Musical.ly audience, to our other platforms, and we're seeing them scattered in there now. We're seeing on YouTube now people from Musical.ly and Lively go, oh, I follow you there. Like, when are you going to be going live on Lively on our YouTube or Facebook? Or sometimes we'll be simulcasting on Facebook Live and Lively, and we'll see people that are watching us on both at the same time. And they'll say, oh, it's really much more high quality, though, on Facebook Live because we have a more high quality camera than just our phone or an iPad. So it's just fascinating to see the behavioral patterns. And then now on Lively, we're seeing actually moms and kids watch together, which I find like parents and children watching co-viewing, which I just find very interesting in terms of like the possibilities for brand integrations with that as well.
When I talk to brands, I actually don't use the millennial Gen Z conversation. I actually bring it back to digital dinosaur or digital native. And so my book's called A Millennial Mindset, and it's really not the year you were born, but your ability to embrace change, collaboration, and community. And so when you look at like the demographic you're trying to reach, it's not because of the age. Right. It's actually their ability to understand the value they can find on digital. And I think you're going to see brands giving Sons of Anarchy was doing their after show, and they did the Q&A, and they're going to do the Q&A using Periscope now because they don't need to reach a certain age group. They want to reach someone that is digitally active that will make a digital purchase. And I think that's why the conversation should switch from an age group to more about what kind of purchase type are they, a digital native or a digital dinosaur?
It's a really good point, and I think it's a point that touches on the importance of not just looking at, demo breaks and ages and gender, but really looking at personas, because at the end of the day, you're looking for people who are interested and willing to be active
and
on your
behavioral
platforms.
Patterns. And,
absolutely. Like I'm 30 years old. I psychographically engage with entertainment more like a 24-year-old, and what I would be profiled and or targeted with because of my age and gender would be very different, and I would be less likely to engage. So I think that's a really good point. I kind of want to take it maybe like back 5,000 feet, not 10,000 feet, and talk a little bit about discovery in general. So not that we're comparing the live streaming space necessarily to a traditional kind of television or broadcast/cable ecosystem, but there is an aggregator. There's someone who has pulled together, all of these channels in order to allow you to kind of surf through, find what you want, and engage. We're not there yet with live, which I hear is to some extent a challenge because you're having to leverage all of your social touch points and move people through your ecosystem in a very manual way.
Although Facebook pops things up for me that I don't even ask for.
So let's talk about that.
I don't know. Why is it that I keep seeing all the big media brands going live on my Facebook? But you know what I mean? Like I think that at the same time you're saying that, but the platforms are discovering what you should discover. So each platform is doing it a different way. So maybe YouNow is all about more independent creators, and you're doing big projects also with like America's Got Talent. The same with Lively. We're in their promo pool. We're a media partner, but we're a new media partner. Facebook, I believe, is, and we know this, it's nothing new. They're incentivizing big media to jump on board. And so maybe at first you saw what's her name, the mom with the mask.
Yeah, Chewbacca Mom.
Yeah, Chewbacca Mom was a great example, and who knows how much they seeded that. Was a great example of UGC and proved that out to get people excited who are nobodies, that they could become a somebody. But let's be honest, other than that, it's pretty much going back to like what I've seen before in traditional media of like all the big brands or people that just have big money.
Well, I think it's also, I think brands as a whole did a really bad job of social media, and they built a following on every platform. And you became platform dependent. And I think today's viewer does not give a crap about the platform, no offense, but they actually care about the person and the community. So like for me, I think a brand, a creator, you create a community and they'll follow you to whatever platform you go. But if you are focused on only having a following, and I speak from this because Meerkat was my platform. I bled yellow. I uninstalled Periscope live on a Meerkat stream that Periscope still kind of holds against me because I thought the platform is what made me successful, and it was really the community of people that continue to come back. And so when we work with brands, the reason you have to use all of those platforms is because you have followings on all of them, but the true community are those that share a common purpose and a common passion. And when you're able to pull those people together, I don't care if it's an email, newsletter, or whatever that conversation is, and you say, I'm going live on Busker, my community goes. And I think for the brands that focus on community, not following, they can actually make a difference doing that.
Well, and I think that what you're saying is very true. And what it really boils down to is creators and brands have to create and nurture their own followings and do a lot with them. This is what we're doing is essentially providing a platform for creators to do more, right? But at the end of the day, what works for us is when those creators go out, socially promote the fact that they're going to be on Busker ahead of time and build and bring audiences in. And that's making them and others around them more discoverable. So you're seeing this effect of when Brian's live on Busker, his peers are there, and then his peers go live on Busker, and then they go out and socially promote the fact that they're live. And that's what's bringing audience, and that's what's creating discoverability. And beyond that, again, with our scheduled broadcast feature, what we're able to do is kind of showcase shows, right? Things almost like a show guide, right? So things that we know are upcoming in the next 48 hours, you can share, you can socially share to your fan base. Other people can socially share those things and say, hey, so-and-so is going to be live on Busker tomorrow at 7 p.m. In fact, tonight, not to offend Mario Armstrong, but great DJ ER at 7 p.m. Eastern time, an amazing live show on Busker. I'm excited to watch it. A lot of people are. They're going to go out there and socially share that show and build an audience around unique, exciting content.
I think platforms have a responsibility. I think YouTube did it really well at the beginning, and that's where we saw the YouTube creator movement. And then as things get bigger, they stop being as hands-on. The discoverability, I think platforms have a responsibility to create discoverability, not just for big media partners and big brands that are giving them a ton of money, which, yeah, people need to make money. We're a business. But they have a responsibility to showcase next-gen creators, and I think YouTube has also, continued to do that well. And my hope is, as I see all these big platforms grow, that they continue to motivate the people that have lots of money, but then also these next-generation creators, or else what you're going to see is a trickle-down effect. You're going to see what we've seen in traditional media, and how great, but yet how boring would that be if the reason why we're here is because of what's happened in this creator movement, and yet we're kind of saying, well, no,
and for brands, that's hard. Because I was building out Snapchat strategies, and I was getting, one of 4 to buy in. The day Instagram stories came in, my phone would not stop ringing. Because for them, they had already had an audience that was there, and it was discoverable, and they could put paid Facebook behind it. So part of it was like Snapchat's beauty was that it was hard to build a following. It was very organic. And I even have a keynote that's called, Limitations Inspire Creativity. But for a brand, they all of a sudden saw Instagram stories as the story element with discoverability. And for me, kind of building that into Instagram stories was a no-brainer. And I think you're going to see probably Snapchat come out with more of a discovery, because I think the discovery is an important feature. I'm sure YouNow has the same.
It's very clear from a creator perspective how important it is you feel having that kind of open dialogue with the
talent
platform.
development is so important.
How much time do you guys spend thinking about that?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, in the end of the day, it reflects really well on us as a platform to have the best content, up front. And so we rely both on the audience to give thumbs up in real time for stuff to trend and surface, which is the scalable way, which is what you see out there 95% of the time. We also rely on the creators themselves to hashtag themselves in the right way so they're discoverable under categories like music or dance or guys or girls or LGBT or hip-hop. We ourselves, for, the last 5% of it, select editor's choice. We would really be excited to showcase stuff that's up and coming. Like today, earlier, we launched here our 2nd season of working with America's Got Talent, where they were auditioning talent from all over the country live on YouNow. And that was a scheduled show that was featured. And when iHeartRadio does their weekly show, or Huffington Post, we're really excited to showcase that. Or where great creators like Brian or Shira would come, we would want to help and push them.
Yeah, we get excited about connecting that gap also, because like while I'm saying big media and I'm like, ooh, we came from big media. We were working with CBS News. We've worked with Fortune 500 brands. We thrive off that. That's how we make a living too. We get excited though in connecting the dots between the creator community and what's happening over here with growing business models with Fortune 500 brands and huge publishers. So we're kind of on the ground floor experimenting with all these emerging platforms and seeing what works and what doesn't, whether it be YouNow or Lively or even Facebook Live at the beginning before a lot of people were building models. And then we're saying, okay, how do we scale this up with help from a brand or a traditional publisher
or the
that
platform,
has a lot of
right?
reach?
If you look at the platforms that are
platform
here,
that
like
can
for me, I tell every creator, if you want a voice, we want to know the platform cares about us, the creator. And not all platforms, especially today, care about the creator. And if I was looking at a brand and you wanted to invest on 2 of them, I would invest in ones that actually care, listen to the creator, have an open dialogue, allow their creators to help shape their content. And I think that's a huge piece for me as a creator, but it's also if I was a brand, I want to invest somewhere where I know that, hey, if this is something, there was a tool called Blab, and I did 20 hours at the Super Bowl with 5 Fortune 100 companies, and I went to that company and said, hey, I'm live streaming, I'm at the Super Bowl, and they said, I don't care, that's not what we built this platform for. I quickly went to my brand sponsorship and said, don't invest our community in Blab, let's go find a platform that actually cares about us, the creator, that can empower us. And I think that's why you see guys like these 2 guys on the stage, because I truly believe they understand their community and they're providing the features in real time that they want.
Yeah, we spend, every week we do a Q&A with our community, so we go live from the office, the entire team, and we talk about updates, what's coming. We take questions. We always take advice from our community. They've derailed us quite a bit in terms of what our initial timelines were for certain launches, and that's been great because it's been empowering for them. And back to the original line of thought here, we want creators to become big people, right? We want them to get noticed inside and outside of the app.
Well, they're evangelists for your brand.
Of course, and we're doing everything we can to make them more discoverable, to feature shows, to support them in other ways, in every way possible, to help them kind of get on their way. In our app, you get what you give, right? In the long run, if you bring an audience over and you create unique, compelling content, people are going to support you. Your fans who care about you are going to support your lifestyle. We have folks on the app, we're 6 months old. We have people who support themselves on Busker, which is something we're really proud of. And we've got a long way to go in terms of scaling the business. But if you can imagine, once we get to sort of a critical mass in terms of user base, what those numbers will eventually look like for people, it's kind of mind-blowing. So
I feel like there's this theme of partnership and the triangulation that's become really important, which is your note about coming to the table, coming to a brand table with the kind of relationship and or openness and flexibility to create concepts and execute them together as platform and creator. And that's, I think been largely atypical. So that feels really interesting. I know we've got a couple minutes.
Are we opening questions now?
Yeah, I did want to leave a few minutes for Q&A.
But I think one of the things probably people out there, like live is risky. Let's face it, live and the trust factor is hard. So you have to trust the creator. You have to trust that the platform is going to stand up. You also have to trust that the relationship between the creator and the community is authentic and they value that. And I think it's the job of the creator as much as it is the brand to make sure that those things align. I think that's probably the underlying piece.
Yeah, when brands approach, I hate being like, so tell us about your services. It's like, we do everything in white label production. We basically do live to hack social. So it's like if you want to use social or use live, if the pyramid is here and live is here, it brings you social impressions, it brings you press impressions, it brings you interactivity, real time, it brings you on-demand content. So it's funny because as much as it's risky, we've been doing live with brands like Samsung and PayPal. 4 years ago, we were doing it, pop-up studios for major events like South by and CES, and we've proven those models. If anything, now we're like, okay, it was proven in the old times. Now look at, if anything, the opportunity because now the audience is finally ready and the tools are there.
But everything is risky, right? In social,
Yeah, exactly.
Live is raw, is what it is. It's not more risky than anything else. At the end of the day, you're out to send a message, you're out to communicate with people. As a brand, you want to spread the word through influencers and other folks who are leveraging these platforms. It's raw.
It's the same thing that people said with Snapchat when it started, and then anything like live tweeting.
Yeah.
Similar. We've gone through
what
this.
happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So any questions? Yes.
Do you want to take over?
We have a, sorry, I want to make sure everybody can hear you.
The microphone is coming to you.
So most of this conversation is kind of skewed toward brands leveraging live. Maybe this event isn't the platform for this, but like looking at the creator or the business or the person that's starting to make content for themselves,
Yeah.
how do they elevate themselves to a level where this is worth the effort and energy for them? How do they get people engaged? Because I feel like that's almost the starting point for a brand to be able to tap into those audiences. How do you build that in the first place? And how does somebody that's hitting record or broadcast for the first time get into doing that? Like,
Yeah.
how can they be successful?
I mean, yeah, go.
I would say you define what success looks like for you, the individual, right? And you play the long game. And like, it's a long game. And building a relationship in a community, it takes a lot of time. But I think if your goal is to get noticed, and really, I quote Gary. Gary's someone that he said, you have to give up something to get something. And I think if you're not willing to put in the time to go live, in 18 months, I've done 1,300 live streams myself individually, as well as building up 2 businesses. I have 3 daughters, and for me, giving up a lot of the things that I had to give up because I looked at it and said, hey, I'm going to engage. I didn't see value. I didn't see return on live streaming for 10 months because I felt like you have to put that up there, and it's hard sell because if you're not willing to put in all that time up front, you're never going to grow that ultimate community, which will be that difference.
Yeah.
So guys, unfortunately, we've got to wrap.
Good
but
luck.
I just want to say, it's not easy wrapping, Shira. No, it was a pleasure moderating you guys, really. Thank you so much. And I encourage anybody in the audience with other questions, follow these guys on social, keep the conversation going. There's obviously lots and lots of interesting things still left to unpack and discuss. But thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. And
Appreciate
thanks
it.
to Brave and Roker.